guys, this is Katie Parker, and this is my lesson plan on the literary elements. It's a week late and a little different from the rest I've done because last week I went to Louisiana and totally forgot to bring the big book with me and ended up taking several different people to doctors the whole time I was home. So I didn't get anything done while I was in Louisiana. And I flew home, and my boyfriend picked me up at the airport with a nice engagement ring. So, whenever we got done with our little engagement thing, I started working on my lesson plan just to realize my computer had got a really bad virus and deleted, or hid actually, all of my files. And I thought we had it fixed, and I did my whole lesson plan. Then it decided to delete that one too. So ended up taking it to 2 different shops and actually buying a tablet to get by until my computer's out of the shop. And my tablet will not let me access the template for the lesson plan or any of my old lesson plans. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm doing all this in the correct order, so just bear with me. But like I said, this is the literary elements one. And my teacher objective is the teacher will identify story elements including the speaker, narrator, settings, characters, plot, and problem and solution, which is ELA 1 of E4. To review, we're going to go over what we did last week, which was the silent E, and I'll ask the students if they can recall the 5 different rules for silent E. And whenever that's taken care of, we'll go through just some random words that end with silent E, one student at a time. And then for more challenging questions, I'll ask the students, rope and soap have the same O sound in the middle. Spell each, and they will, and I'll ask which one has the silent E, and which that's rope. And then whenever they spell soap, I'll ask why the O-A has the same O sound in the middle, and that's because whenever 2 vowels are together, it takes the sound of the first one, or makes the first one say their name, rather. Then the overview again is the teacher will identify the story elements including speaker, narrator, settings, characters, plot, and the problem and solution of the story. And this will help the students to identify the parts of the story so that they can comprehend stories as meaningful. In the past, to build on this, we worked on phonics to understand the words that are on the pages. Today, we'll go over the parts of the story, and in the future, we'll be able to retell stories by recalling the literary elements. And for motivation, I'm going to be reading Puff the Magic Dragon. And a little on Puff the Magic Dragon, it was actually a song, which most of y'all know, but it was actually a song recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary. But the original poem was written by Lenny Lipton. So this falls under it's a picture book now, but it's in a verse form because it was a poem. It's Puff the Magic Dragon. This is Honolulu, which is where he lives. It's a pretty sea out there. Alright. See if I can do this on this little screen. Maybe not. Okay. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. So, here's Puff, and that's his friend, and he's frolicking, which you can ask students if they know what that means, which is just playing with no cares in the world. He's just playing out here in the land called Honolulu. So, this is Little Jackie Paper. So, Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. You can take time here to ask the kids if they know what sealing wax is, because prior to this, I didn't know either. I had to look it up, and It was like commonly used back in the 60s whenever this book or the poem was written, and not so common used anymore. But it's basically almost like candle wax melted and dripped down like on envelopes and stuff to seal it, to make sure like if it's tampered with you can see that it's messed up. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. And you can ask right now if they know what time of the year autumn is. And it's actually autumn right now, so it'd be a great time of the year to read it. The second line right here is also the same as the first right there. So maybe try to get the kids to read it along, saying, Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. And you see they're still playing together. Together they would travel on a boat with billowed sail. Jackie kept a lookout perched on Puff's gigantic tail. Now they're on a boat and they're playing still. Noble kings and princes would bow whenever they came. You could ask the students if we have kings here now. We don't have kings in the United States. Pirate ships would lower their flags whenever Puff roared out his name. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. And again, try to get the students to read the second part with you because it just does the same thing. Puff the Magic Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. A dragon lives forever, but not so little girls and boys. Painted wings and giant's rings make way for other toys. One gray night it happened, Jackie Paper came no more, and Puff, that mighty dragon, he ceased his fearless roar. What happened? Well, Jackie's starting to get older now, and maybe Puff's just in his imagination, because we know dragons aren't real, right? Well, maybe his imagination is now understanding more grown-up stuff, you know? So he's not playing with his dragon anymore, and maybe he's just outgrown that thought. So now Puff, which is imaginative, is really sad because Jackie's not playing with him no more. Jackie grew up. His head was bent in sorrow. Green scales fell like rain. Without his lifelong friend, Puff could not be brave. So Puff, that mighty dragon, sadly slipped into his cave. That's sad. Puff's depressed because his friend's no longer playing with him. Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. What's happening in this picture? It doesn't say it in the words, but can you tell me what's going on? See this? It's a new kid coming to play with him, and look how happy his face is. He's not sad anymore. He came out of his cave to play. Puff, the magic dragon, lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Look, he's happy again with the little girl. And who's over in the corner? That's Jackie Paper. Maybe his daughter now has the imagination and gets to go play with the dragon. Something's really interesting about this story that you could point out to make the kids really think about the author. Lenny Listen, which wrote the poem, actually ended up on an island that has a bay called Honolulu, and he was asked why he chose that place. And he had never been there before. He had never heard of it. It was completely made up. But on Honolulu Bay, there's actually a big cave that would actually be big enough for a dragon to fit in. So it kind of ties it in with real life. I'm going to stop this right here and start over for YouTube.